Welcome to Snetterton and round number 3 of the Mini Challenge for 2019, the JCW class, the top level of Mini Challenge racing with these F56 Mini Challenge cars in their third season of racing these days. As close as you can get to a top level touring car without spending about £300,000. These are proper bits of kit, front wheel drive, slicks and wings, close racing. If you want to be a touring car star, this is one of the places that you have to be. We've had 2 races already at Alton Park a few weeks ago that were scintillating from start to finish. We're anticipating that Snetterton is going to produce more of the same sort of action. Andy McEwen here alongside me, Graham Goodwin. Graham, are you a Mini fan? I suspect you might be.
Everybody's a Mini fan. Andy. Everybody's a Mini fan. One make Mini racing. It's just the soul of British motorsport. And with these 265 brake horsepower, slick shod, winged cars, fantastic stuff to come.
Yeah, and the racing is proper touring car racing, usually very close, lots of overtaking, but generally speaking, plenty of respect shown by the drivers that are now leaving the grid onto their green flag lap, and a slightly delayed start to this race because of an incident in the previous VW Racing Cup race, which our hard-working British marshals have dealt with splendidly, and they've got the barriers repaired, they've got the cars out of the way, and the circuit is good to go racing once again. The victories at Alton Park shared between James Gornall and Jack Mabin, but James Gornall is your championship leader, arriving here by 2 points because he had a win and a second place. Jack Mabin had a win and a third place in the first race, so a 2-point advantage for Gornall. It was the same 3 drivers though that were on the podium in both races last time out, with Nathan Harrison getting a pair of podium finishes as well. It's Gornall on pole here too. He's in strong form early in 2019. Lewis Brown alongside him. Lee Patterson, former Clio racer, is third, whilst Nathan Harrison, third in the championship, is fourth on the grid. Ben Palmer and Dan Zelos make up the third row of the grid, and row 4 is where we find Jack Mabin. So Jack Mabin's got some work to do, second in the championship, 7th on the grid though. Jack Davidson is alongside him in car number 21 with James McIntyre and James Lukes next in line. Behind them they round out the top 10. Callum King and Tom Rawlings are next. They make up the 6th row of what is a 29 car entry. Callum Newsham, son of former British touring car racer Dave, has Matthew Wilson, not the Matthew Wilson, alongside him. Harry Gooding and Richard Newman are next. They make up the 8th row with Keenan Dole, one to watch. He should move forward, and so too Max Bird, a former Ginetta GT5 racer. Brian Dignan and Sam Weller may round out the top 20 cars on the grid. Then it's Rory Cuff and James Griffith, getting down towards the tail end of the grid now with Jacob Andrews and William Hardy. All of these drivers will be fighting to try and get into the sort of the top end of the points in this race. Josh Stanton and Lewis Gayler, Neil Trotter with Stuart Gibbs and Steve King at the back of the grid. So James Gornall then on the pole position, the championship leader. 2008, he was the British GT champion in the car that he shared with John Barnes, and he's been racing a few things since then, Graham. Mostly one-make racing. He's had lots of success. He's won a couple of BMW Compact Cup championships, but now he's back to a really high-profile championship in the Mini Challenge and straight on the pace.
Yeah, and stepping it back up, isn't he, James? It's been a little wee while since he's been at the top end, if you like, of national motorsports. You're right, still keeping his racing moving, but top level at GT a decade ago. It seems amazing to think of it that way, but you sort of get the impression James Gornall is beginning to mount a challenge to step up that ladder again.
Yes, and it's something that I know lots of us would like to see. We all recognise that he's a supreme talent, and he is a nice guy as well, a genuinely nice guy, enjoys his racing, and as I say, won the BMW Compact Cup a few years ago, and most of his success though has come at the wheel of rear-wheel drive racing cars, which is why when he turned up in this championship for the last couple of rounds last season and was straight up in the front couple of rows of the grid, a lot of people were surprised, but not me, because I know James, I know that he's quick, and he's quick in anything that you plug him into, and he's been the dominant man really. Arguably should have won both races at Alton Park and got got shuffled out of line late in the day. He was challenging for the lead, significantly quicker than the race leader, went for a move, it didn't work, and ended up losing a position instead. Settled for second place by the checkered flag, but he, in the first of the two yellow cars, the yellow and white, number 18, Jiggy James Gornall on the pole position. Lewis Brown alongside him, another former Ginetta race. Lots of drivers seem to be taking the step from Ginettas to Minis these days, which is an interesting career path, but it's one that's worked out well for quite a lot of GT and touring car drivers over the last few years. The front row sat waiting and sat losing all of that tyre temperature, Graham, because it's a big old grid, this 29 cars that have to come and line up in this staggered grid formation. All that hard work to get some pressure into the tyres over the warm-up lap starts to disappear again now, doesn't it?
Maxi grid for Minis, and you're right, the ladder in British motorsports changed dramatically over recent years. The Mini One Mate series have always played a big part in that, and having those different steps on this ladder is helping some of these guys to move onwards and forwards. And these again are some of those names that we're going to be seeing at the higher echelons of touring car racing in the very near future. Green flag at the back of the grid, and we're ready to go.
Yes, we are then. 20 minutes of racing, round number 3 of the mini challenge for the JCW class. Red lights go on, they go out now, away we go. James Gordon with a good start from pole position. Lee Patterson was away well from third in the grey car as well. Lee, a very experienced front wheel drive tin top racer, so we expect him to go well here, and he's challenging for second place. Look at the inside of Lewis Brown. Lewis turns in, there was almost a bit of contact between the two of them, but I think they just avoided trading paint. Brown hangs on to second place then, Patterson in third, all safely through Riches, so far so good, and then pick a line, any line, down into the braking zone, and it's all getting very, very congested indeed. Jack Mabin, that was, I think, in the black and red number 7 car, came barreling through the middle of everybody, gained a spot or two as a result. Look at the lead though that Gornall's got already. Lewis Brown and Lee Patterson, they were only side by side for a few hundred metres, but they held each other up just enough to allow Gornall to break free.
Yeah, a little bit of side-by-side elbows further down the pack, but getting that clean start has allowed James Gornall just to get a bit of fresh air. If he can keep gapping that field, well, but he's not doing quite that, because there is a bit of a fight back to the third. One of the cars loses big momentum, going wide there to the outside.
Oh, and another one off as well.
44.
That's Max Burt, number 44, that's dropped to the tail of the field. That's all coming out of Agostini, another on
and
the grass. 47 is James McIntyre. Oh, he started quite well as well. He was 9th on the grid, so he'll be well outside the top 10 now after that grassy excursion. So they kept it clean for the first couple of laps, but then, as is so often the case in a field as tightly bunched as this on the opening lap, if one car has a moment, then it creates that stack-up effect, doesn't it? And then more and more sort of cars start clattering into each other, and before you know it, someone gets fired into the weeds. But no major damage done. They're all continuing on their way, and this battle for second place continues in earnest, with Lewis Brown fending off Lee Patterson for the time being. There's Dan Zelos in the green and blue number 445 car. Dan came out of Ginetta Junior Racing into the Renault UK Clio Cup and now into Mini Challenge. And Dan Zelos 5th in the points coming into this weekend with a best finish of 6th so far. Already looking to at least match that in the early stages of this first race at Snetterton.
It's very busy indeed around the Snetterton 300 circuit. And some of these guys looking for space. Dip back in. The conclusion of the first lap. So just almost 1 second dead lead for James Gornall.
Yeah, he took all of that time there, really, in the first sector, didn't he? In sectors 2 and 3, he was only about a 1/10 of a second quicker than Lewis Brown. It was all in the first corner or so where he built up that advantage, and will now look to try and get his head down. In qualifying, he was the fastest. He would like to think that in a race situation, the same is true, and he's broken the toe as well, crucially, often around the Snetterton 300 circuit.
Very just another car off. That's 46 car, and I think there may have been a further car too. I think there were 2 cars involved there, because there's dust cloud further up the road.
Yeah, there was one car stationary, which was Stuart Gibbs. I think there was another that was bouncing its way back onto the road, and we'll see therefore who comes through at the back of the field then at the end of this this second lap of racing. Let's see if we can catch it on the replay.
And that was the
The pass. I didn't see the number. Whoever it was, they've rejoined, but I want to say possibly Richard Newman, but that's a complete guess. So we'll wait and see. I can tell you Stuart Gibbs is off, but has rejoined. James Gornall then, your race leader. There is Lee Patterson in 3rd place, coming under real pressure now from Nathan Harrison, having dropped down from off the tail now slightly of Lewis Brown, rather. Down the straight goes Lewis Brown. Fight for third place now, intensifying behind him. Oh, I got it right first time for everything. Richard Newman, we confirmed was the other car that went off at turn 1. Whew. Right, onwards and
carry on with that list of success, Richard.
Yes,
it's going to get a bit more hairy, I'm sure, before we get to the end of 16 minutes still to run with this race, and still very close contention for most of, if not all of, the significant places. James Gornall still just moving away, but not at the rate he was. You're quite right, most of that gap was done into and through the first corner.
Yeah, and he was 3/10 quicker than anybody else in the first sector on this lap as well, so he's clearly got that part of the circuit hooked up quite nicely.
I find it quite staggering how here we are, what, 50 odd years on from the original Mini, and the soundtrack is still at times exactly the same. That transmission noise coming through with these fantastic new cars.
Yeah, they look good, and they go
great.
really quickly as well. Oh, a bit sideways there, and that is Lee Patterson, who ran a bit wide through Riches, and that almost opened the door for Nathan Harrison to get up the inside. The trouble for Nathan is that, as is often the case in Mini Challenge racing, he's got company from behind as well, and Ben Palmer in the number 2 car is the man trying to find a way past him. Ben had a non-finish at Alton Park, so he's outside the top 10 in the points coming here at Snetterton. So for him, his season starts now. He needs to try and get as many top 5 finishes as possible to claw back the points deficit, and he's doing just that at the moment. In 5th place is Ben Palmer, and within touching distance of 3rd. The trouble is that there's no such thing as an easy overtake in this championship.
Indeed, it's pick a line, any line, but pick the wrong one, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4 Minis behind, just ready to take advantage of the error.
Oh, and that might have been the error for Lee Patterson. Just missed the apex at Oggies, and through into Williams goes Nathan Harrison. So Nathan, former runner-up in this championship a few years ago, before going off and doing a bit of clear racing. Well, he's back in the championship once more, and he's back into the podium positions now, is Nathan. New fastest lap for Jack Mabin, well spotted, down in 7th position for car number 7 appropriately. He's closing, well, has closed now in on this group, because Dan Zelos in the green car and the red and black machine behind him is Jack Mabin. They've both been able to take advantage of that dicing that was going on through the middle part of the lap, and so Jack Mabin in car number 7, 2nd in the championship. But James Gornall leading the race is already looking set to extend that championship margin. Oh, off goes Lee Patterson. Lee Patterson lost the rear of the car through Coram, skates out onto the grass. That has sort of been on the card for about a lap, hasn't it?
Absolutely, he's going to pick up quite a lot of grass there as well. It cost him very dearly indeed.
Jack Mabin now, though, launching an attack on Dan Zelos, pulls to the outside line down at the first corner, ducks back in line though, because that's Callum King, is it, behind him now in the 21, Jack Davidson, who is behind these two now. Jack Mabin and Jack Davidson had a few nice battles at Alton Park, I seem to remember, in race 2 last time out.
That is where the battling is going at the moment. First to second, it's a static gap, 1.2 seconds for the lead. So about a further second back to the number 27 car.
Interestingly though, Graham, Nathan Harrison, as soon as he got into that 3rd place, it's just disappeared from our screen, but he set the outright fastest 3rd sector. So the first sector that he was in clean air, he was faster than anybody. So can he maybe catch Lewis Brown in 2nd?
What he's doing is he's matching the leading pair's times right now. If he can just start to eke into that, it's not a big gap. A 10th or 2 here and there, with still 12.5 minutes to go, is going to be enough to make that a 3-car battle for the lead.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. So Nathan Harrison, who had those 2 podiums last time, he won't want to break that podium run though, above all else. So if he's got a solid and secure 3rd place in hand, then he'll be more than happy to take the points. But he knows, having lost out on this championship by a handful of points a couple of years ago, he knows how important every position can be. And with this dominant performance we're seeing from James Gornall, you're going to have to try and take the fight to him at any opportunity you can.
James Gornall is just eking out tiny extra margin here. It's not going to be by much, it's going to be in the tenths, but he's beginning to find a little bit more pace. Purple sector's coming for the lead car.
We've seen this from Gordon in the past in some of the other one-way racing he's done. He frustrates his competitors because he gains all this time in the opening couple of laps, supremely confident on cold tyres is James Gordon, and then they sort of match him for the rest of the race. And they say to me, well, he's no quicker than us, we can match his lap times, we just can't keep up with him in the first lap or so. And, well, he has now eked out nearly a 2-second advantage. This is possibly being aided by the fact that Lewis Brown is now becoming a bit preoccupied with Nathan Harrison, who over the course of a lap has now caught him.
Well, that's because Harrison is quicker. It's not, the second place car hasn't lost momentum. In fact, New Zealand loses one thing, and that's second place. Up into second place goes the number 27 car with a much quicker lap last time around. Took half a second on pace out of the second place car, and then I think you're absolutely right, too much watching in mirrors, not watching ahead, and that forced the minor error through. We have a new second place car. What can he do now about the charging James Gordon?
Well, on the previous lap he was just over a tenth of a second slower than the race leader, but now he's back in clean air again. I wonder whether or not Nathan Harrison will be able to eat into that advantage. It's going to be just over 2 seconds, I reckon, the gap between first and second, so we'll monitor that with just over half the race still to go. It was a personal best lap actually last time for Harrison and for Ben Palmer, about half a second further behind them. Just there is Ben Palmer. Actually, that's more than half a second, sorry, 2.2 seconds, excuse me, behind them. He is half a second ahead of Dan Zelos, though, who is now ahead of Jack Mabin for fifth, so we've had some changes in that next group of cars. And then this is the battling towards the tail end of the top 10. So Zelos into fifth, Jack Mabin down to sixth, ahead of Davidson, Patterson, Callum King and James Lukes into the top 10 now as well. Keenan Dole, meanwhile, is 11th, having started 17th, so unnoticed so far, but further down the order there's been lots of overtaking going on as well. This is the fight then between Jack Mabin and Jack Davidson, the two Jacks together again, as they were all day long at Alton Park. Davidson looks the quicker to me here. Absolutely, looking racy, looking for a way through, looking to the inside, looking to the outside, inside again, has got the nose ahead, correct line through there, and the battle is done. Yep, and Lee Patterson looking to try and follow through, but there's no room at the end. Oh, Mabin back on the inside. That was a really good move there from Jack Mabin. Clean as a whistle as well, until they lean on each other on the exit of the corner. That was nearly a repeat of what we saw earlier on today. And this is all going to benefit Lee Patterson, who gets a double slipstream, gets a significantly better run out of the corner. They might even be 4 wide by the time they reach Riches, because Callum King is thinking about joining in the fun as well. Oh. Someone had to be in the boonies. 2 of them are off, and bang, into the barriers goes Jack Mabin. And I think it was Jack Davidson, wasn't it, that was sideways as well? Yes, it was. There is Jack, who has rejoined, having lost some ground and possibly damaged the front of the car as well. I mean, it would have been a miracle, Graham, if they'd have all got through that first corner. Absolutely, it was opportunism. Callum King up the inside, looked to have got that move actually done, but unfortunately that left no room for the rest of them through the corner. Well, 45 car moves up 3 places in that. Oh, that is not so much damage to the car, although it clearly is not in showroom condition, but I'm more concerned in a way about the damage to the barrier. Jack Mabin, though, is out of the car. Let's see what the replay tells us here, Graham. And there was no contact. No contact there. No. There was contact between the luckless number 7, I'm afraid. Yeah, but I think that's probably because he checked up, seeing... He came to the inside where there was no room, but that is a sorry sight, I'm afraid. Yeah, that was all triggered, I think, by Jack Davidson's slide just on the dirty side of the road, and then everyone else sort of panicking and wondering where to go, and they kind of met in the middle in the end. So big shock for Jack Mabin, but he's out of the car. He seems a bit shaken, a bit winded, but more or less okay. But to finish my point about the barriers, I do wonder whether or not Race Control might decide that they need repairing imminently, or whether or not we can leave it as it is until the end of the race. There are 8 minutes still to go, so that's another 4 laps or so, I reckon. 3 or 4 laps maybe, and if they decide that the car is in a safe enough position and the barrier is in sufficiently one piece that we can carry on racing, then they will leave it as it is, which seems to be the case because there is no safety car, the green flags are still flying, and this battle for second can continue. And that battle for second is now allowing James Gornall to make considerable progress. He's 3-4 seconds ahead now, gets another second on this pair last time around, with the number 27 car now in to defend their second position, not able to use the clear air. Yep, back down through the Wilson hairpin, and Ben Palmer in 4th position was 1.3 seconds behind them, but was 0.3 quicker than them on the previous lap. So he and Dan Zelos are starting to inch their way towards the podium positions here. This is all building up nicely now for the final third of the race. Behind them, there's been some more changing, of course, because of that schmozzle up at the first corner. Lee Patterson is now back into 6th. Callum King is 7th. Jack Davidson down to 8th, but lucky in a way still to be in the race, with Keenan Dole inside the top 10 now, and James Lukes down to that 10th position. Callum Newshan is 11th position, having started 13th, so he's not made quite the progress that I perhaps thought he might. Up the inside there, though, a move is attempted, and that is Sam Weller defending from the number 88 car behind him, Tom Rawlings. Lots of battles up and down the order, and this is why you really have to be trackside, don't you, as a spectator, to fully appreciate just how much goes on in a field full of one-make cars.
47 on the outside, contact with the front of the 12, makes that move stick there, and Kelly, and again, no. That always looked like it was going to happen.
James McIntyre on the grass, I think for the second time this race, isn't he? I seem to remember seeing him off in the early stages as well. That time, though, we definitely saw he was assisted. But, you know, if you've lost the place around the outside of the previous corner, you're sort of obliged to try and fight back in the next one,
Absolutely. Well, many have rally and rallycross heritage, and that was being used to good effect there, rejoining the race.
Yes, perhaps not the ideal line through the corner, though, so lots of places lost. Are we going to see any places lost here, though, for Nathan Harrison? Because having got past Lewis Brown, we'll back to that in a moment, here's the replay. Door firmly slammed in the face there, wasn't it? And unfortunately, it was James that came off the worst.
Yeah.
Bounces across the grass, and no damage done, but yeah, not ideal for him, unfortunately. Right, yes, and back to my point about Nathan Harrison. I thought once he got past Lewis Brown, he would, even if he couldn't catch James Gordon, I thought he'd be able to pull away from Brown. Not the case.
It's not at all. In fact, if anything, he's looking the most under pressure at the moment. James Gornall is pulling away. Another second gained on that lap, but all of a sudden, it does look as if Harrison's under pressure, not from one car, but now two.
We talk about the slipstream a lot here at Snetterton, though, and I wonder whether that's what's coming into play here. Often it can look as though the chasing car is significantly quicker than the car in front because they have the tow. Then they get in front and they can't do anything with it. So I wonder whether that's what's happening with Harrison. He'll be very happy to see that Lewis Brown is now having to defend from Ben Palmer behind him, though. Ben Palmer in 4th position is starting to go on the attack, fairly equidistantly spaced out there as they turn into the left-hand kick at Hamilton. Some serious air underneath the left-hand side wheels of Lewis Brown's car there as he hammered the curb through the left-hand kink. Took a bit too much curb, I think, there through Oggies, and drifted a bit wide. Not quite as wide as Palmer, though, who dips a wheel into the grass. Dan Zelos keeping a watching brief behind them in 5th position as well.
And definitely closing the gap. This is going to become a 4-car train, but meantime, there is significant clear air now to the rear of James Gornall's leading Mini. Number 18 car has not been troubled since turn 1. Looked initially to be struggling to build on that lead, but well, the last 5-10 minutes have seen James Gornall really make hay here.
Yes, it's almost unheard of, isn't it, to see a Mini Challenge race won by more than a second at the very most, but James Gornall is already 5 seconds clear, with still another couple of laps to go as well. Really impressive performance, this. There's a reason he's the championship leader, though, I guess. We should expect nothing less of him.
That drive real quality. You don't win British GT Championship by not being able to run a race like this strategically. Push when you can push.
I'm sure he's able to draw upon his experience in that Dodge Viper GT3 car.
It's exactly
the
same kind of thing. It's like driving a Dodge Viper in reverse.
Yes, I can imagine it is. So James Gornall then drawing on his wealth of motor racing experience in various championships and various types of car. But I do make the point that most of his racing experience has been in rear-wheel drive machinery. Now Lewis Brown seriously having to go on the defence here to keep Ben Palmer at bay. Ben trying to go right round the outside at the Wilson hairpin because that will buy him the inside line for Palmer's, and he might just have got his nose in the door.
Bit close.
Oh, he's late on the brakes. Lewis Brown, though, fair enough.
Well,
left him plenty of room there, didn't he?
He did. That was brilliantly. Oh, loads of race room given. Hopped across the curbs there. Don't think that's going to compromise him too much, though. But yes, looking very racy here, though.
Palmer back up the inside, and yeah, Brown had dirt on his tyres there, I think. He's got him. Nicely done. He's got the inside line for the next corner anyway, but Brown fighting back, in fact. So this to and fro battle. It could be Dan Zelos that's the big winner here because he closes in on the pair of them. Now, which way do you go, left or right? The next 2 corners are right-handers, so they should favour Lewis Brown, but he runs wide. He takes Ben Palmer with him.
Dan Zelos on the inside of both of them here.
He's going to get them both as well, I think, isn't he?
Well done. Wow, great move there.
You can tell he used to race in Ginetta Juniors, can't you? Because he read that situation perfectly and found a gap that was just about big enough.
I know what's going to happen here. And spot on. Dan Zelos now, is he going to be able to gap this pair though?
Well, he wasn't quite as quick as them until they started dicing with each other, so it may be that he now has to spend the remaining lap and a half or so watching his mirrors and defending like his life depends on it, but this is worth defending. It's a podium result they're fighting over here. The top two have now stretched well clear. This has bought Nathan Harrison a fairly secure run to second place, I think. Indeed. But for third place is any one of three drivers.
And after all of that, those three cars order entirely reversed. 4:45 ahead of 69. That's 4:45 ahead of the 2 and the 39 now.
Palmer a bit tighter out of the corner there. He forced Zelos a bit wide, forced the mistake maybe out of the youngster. Then pulling to the outside line though. You don't really want to be on the outside line at Rich's corner, do you? This is a dauntingly quick corner. You also don't want to be banging wheels into Rich's corner, which they nearly were. Ben Palmer right around the outside of Dan Zelos. Watch for Lewis Brown to try and do to Zelos and Palmer what Zelos did to them half a lap ago. Dan, though, has managed to successfully defend the inside line down at Wilson. Palmer finds himself for the second lap in succession on the outside line at the right-hander, and Zelos will show him the edge of the road on the exit and hang on for the time being.
Yeah, heads up stuck from Dan Zelos. He's shown exactly what he's made of with making those two positions. Now what can he show us in the final lap of this race in defending a podium position from two guys who badly want it back?
Yes, they do. Lewis Brown and Ben Palmer, and indeed Dan Zelos, all after their first podium finishes of the year. Nathan Harrison and James Gordon in front of them are well versed to the podium routine, but these three all keen to try and kick-start their championship campaign here at this second meeting of the year. Dan Zelos has it at the moment then. Ben Palmer, though, is, well, actually, Lewis Brown looks closer to Palmer than Palmer is to Zelos at this part of the circuit, but now we're about to go onto the Bentley Straight, where the slipstream is likely to punch them all up together, because Zelos has no help at all. He has no hole being punched in the air in front of him. I have to say, though, that wasn't the best of exits, was it, for Ben Palmer in fourth?
No, we'll wait and see. At the moment, less major dramas. First and second looks pretty well done, but what could happen here in the final corners of the final lap? Well, Dan Zelos is the man at the moment in the pound seat. But are we going to see pace, lunge?
Well, when they redesigned this final corner at Murray's, it was redesigned with exactly that in mind, so we may well see some action at the final turn. No action at all, though, really, from James Gordon. It's been a safe and steady victory here, his second of the year, and he extends the championship margin. James Gordon, a flawless victory drive for him. Nathan Harrison will be second. It's a drag race to the line for third, but Dan Zelos will just hang on, and he is one of the drivers of the race for me. That was a brilliant double move that he made to go from fifth to third, a position that he has, by the skin of his teeth, managed to hang on to the flag. Ben Palmer fourth and Lewis Brown fifth.
Well, you called it. You called that he was sitting there with a watching brief, and he did exactly that. Watched when the gap opened up for him, and he was absolutely on it within a microsecond. On it and through. Beautifully clean racing between those three. Yes, elbows out, but limited, if any, contact between the three. Great battle for a first podium position. It could only go to one of those three.
Well, indeed, yes. And I have to say that Dan, I'm not convinced was as quick as those two, but it goes to show that if you've got the racecraft, you can still get a result, can't you? I think those two, if they'd have been left to their own devices, were maybe a tenth or so quicker than Dan, but Dan read the situation. He realised that they were going to hold each other up and run wide, and he was right there to take advantage. Well, James Gordon takes the victory. It's a reversed grid for race 2 later on, though, and so whilst he took a reasonably comfortable victory in race 1 at Alton Park, his second race was a lot more lively, so James will have to get stuck in that second encounter, which is coming up at the end of the day, actually, at about 6 o'clock. We're due to get our second race for the mini challenge underway. Confirmation of the result, and James Gordon with the victory. 8.8 seconds nearly clear of Nathan Harrison in second place. Dan Zelos is third, Ben Palmer fourth, and Lewis Brown fifth. Lee Patterson is sixth after a grassy excursion at Riches. Callum King, Jack Davidson, Keenan Dole inside the top 10, and Callum Newsham likewise. They both made lots of ground. Keenan Dole started 17th. James Lukes, Harry Gooding, Tom Rawlings, Sam Weller, and Rory Cook will round out the top 15 drivers. We lost Jack Mabin in spectacular fashion at the first corner. We lost Richard Newman on the opening lap after some contact, and I think he limped around and pulled off halfway around that first lap. But he missed out on all of the fun, really. Jack Maven, though, maybe got a bit too much fun. That was a hefty shunt that he had at turn 1. He is okay, but we'll wait to see whether or not the car can be repaired for race number 2 later on. We hope it will be, though, because Jack is a quick driver, and of course second in the championship coming into that race. He won't be second in the championship anymore. This man will have extended his championship lead over Nathan Harrison, who will now move through into P2. It was sort of expected, I think, that these would be the two that were fighting for the championship at the start of the year. Highlights then of a fantastic opening race for the mini challenge here at Snetterton. James Gordle led from pole. It was an easy race for him, but behind, anything but. Stuart Gibbs tangled with Richard Newman at the first corner. Richard would later pull over and retire from the race in the early stages. There was drama for Jack Maben, second in the championship coming into the race, but in reaction to a slide for the car in front, he found himself pitching towards the barriers. He was okay, but the car is rather second-hand. Dan Zelos pulled off one of the moves of the day to go from 5th to 3rd, taking advantage of the squabbling Lewis Brown and Ben Palmer in front of him. Ben briefly looked as though he was going to fight back. They were wheel to wheel for nearly half a lap, but Dan Zelos held on for a podium. James Gordle took his second win of the year and extends the championship margin. More of the same later on this afternoon.